Hi everyone, it's Melissa, and today I am doing the Hindsight is 2020 reader tag. I was tagged by Kelly from, what's her channel's name? Books I'm Not Reading. Thanks Kelly for the tag. I'm really excited about this one because it's all about like your experience as a reader and how that happened and looking back on your reading life. So let's get started. Oh, and I'm also going to link the original tagger, who was Aaron Go Read. So I will link that original video below as well. So question number one is, what were you like as an early and learning reader? My kind of like fuzzy memories around reading as like a very early reader. Well, kind of two separate memories. So there was memories as a learning reader when I was quite young, like 4 or 5. And my memories always involve my older brothers, because of course I would rope them into reading books to me that I wanted to read. I especially remember I really liked Fox and Socks because of like the silly rhymes, and there was one specific page where just the way my brother would read it would make me laugh. So I remember always going to my brothers to like get them to read me books. My brothers are not considerably older than me, that that might offend them. But they are 4 and 4. They are 5 and 8 years older than me. So they were already reading by this time. So I remember that as like a learning reader. As an early reader, like once I could kind of read books myself, my memories are more like solitary. I was very much the hide a book under my covers kind of kid, like stay up past when you're supposed to be asleep, find a quiet corner in a closet to read. Like that's the kind of kid I was. I was always a very kind of like quiet, independent kid anyway, and so my reading kind of followed that. Question 2 is, what book or book series really got you excited about reading as a kid? So some of the first chapter books I remember reading on my own were the Little House series by Laura Ingalls Wilder. So I only have a couple of them, but Little House in the Big Woods I remember reading when I was quite young. Probably like maybe like, well, 6 was probably a bit young, maybe more like 7. I was reading this and I really enjoyed it, but what got me really, really excited especially was the banks of Plum Creek. I've read this book, and this is my copy from childhood. You can tell there's like, I think that's like paint or marker or something. I carried this around with me. I have read this so many times. I couldn't even estimate how many times. And I was so excited by this book because I was a little girl who kind of grew up in the sticks. And I was a bit of a tomboy when I was younger. And I think I just really identified with Laura and her like going out and having adventures in the countryside. And like this book specifically, there's a lot of that. And I was just excited to read about her life, and I was not very adventurous. I mean, I was always playing outside and enjoying nature, but I was quite a timid child. So I liked that there was this element to Laura, this character to Laura that was similar to mine, being out frolicking in nature, but that she had something that I desired, which was a more like confident, adventurous spirit. So this was a book that just got me really excited. And I remember kind of like flying through this book, wanting to learn more about Laura's adventures. I don't know how well these have aged. I know Little House on the Prairie, that one has some problematic depictions of Native Americans. I'm not sure. I don't remember there being Native Americans featured in either of these ones, but I love these as a kid. I probably wouldn't necessarily recommend it nowadays because, I mean, it's a colonial attitude in those books, but they'll always hold a special place in my heart. Number 3 is, has there been a person in your life, real or fictional, who inspired you to be a reader. There wasn't really anyone in my real life who inspired me to be a reader. So like my brothers read to me and like my parents read to me when I was quite young, and we always had like kids books around the house. And then when my brothers got older, they had like adult novels around the house. But my parents themselves were not readers at all. My mom's first language is not English, and I think she got a lot of like, I don't know quite the right word, I don't know, bullied or teased or when she was younger about like pronouncing things wrong and stuff like that. And I don't think she glommed on to reading because of English being her second language and kind of, you know, mean kids at school and probably some mean teachers too, I imagine. And my dad just, it wasn't an interest of his. Like, I remember him reading the newspaper and he was really into crosswords and like that kind of stuff. But I never in my life saw my dad reading a book. So I don't know why I became a reader. I always had access to books and I always loved books, but my parents were not big readers. In terms of a fictional person who inspired me to be a reader, I'm definitely going to go with Anne Shirley for this one. I loved the Anne of Green Gables series when I was a kid. Anne is very much kind of like she wants to be a writer. She's into poetry and like all that kind of stuff. And by the time I was reading these books, I enjoyed books, but I feel like her attitude towards reading and writing really made me see it through a different lens as this like magical thing almost. So I would have to go with Anne Shirley as a fictional person who inspired my reading. Number 4 is, at what point did you begin to identify as a reader? I would say right around that time when I was reading Anne of Green Gables. I was probably around 10 years old, maybe 11 years old when I started reading that. It was also around the age I started reading like other middle grade series as well, and where my reading really picked up. Before then, I would read books like in class and like a book here or there we had at home, like the Little House series. But once I got to middle school, when I was around 10 or 11, that's when I was seeking out new series and new books all the time. Like the books that we were reading for class just weren't enough to satiate me. And I don't know if it was just because of Anne Shirley or it was just, you know, by the time I was 10 or 11, I was a much more competent reader. And so I don't know if it was like a confidence thing in just being able to actually read like more difficult things. But that's when I remember starting to read like a lot. Number 5, how has being a reader shaped your life and your worldview? I think most people who have done this tag have talked about like empathy and books building empathy, and I definitely agree with that. But I was always a very sensitive kid, even before I could read or got really into reading. I was always really sensitive and really empathetic. And I had really good parents. And I just grew up in a very like kind family. I was very lucky. So I don't think books like gave me empathy. They probably nurtured it. But to me, it was more about broadening my worldview. I grew up in a small town, a village, kind of in the middle of nowhere, in a small province in Canada. And we never really had the means to like travel very often. I still am not a traveler. I haven't been like overseas ever. I've been to the United States. That's the only other country I visited. And it's not really far from the border from where I am. But I could have had such a narrow view on life living where I do in a place that's like not very diverse. And so I think without reading, I may not have had as open a mind as I do. I feel like I learned empathy from my parents, but I learned information from books. I know that sounds stupid because, like, of course, that's what books are. It's information and ideas. But unless you've grown up in a very small rural upbringing, it's just hard to articulate that. Like, when I was young, we didn't have the internet. Like, this was the only way I could learn about other people and places. And I think books just really helped me, like, unlearn ignorance and that kind of thing. And like, where I grew up, the rate of illiteracy is like higher than you would expect in a developed country. So I am very, very grateful for literacy and for books. Number 6 is tag someone who's reading history you want to learn more about. I want to learn about everyone's reading history. I love hearing about the books that people loved in their childhoods, like the things that have like shaped your life as a reader. So I'm going to do that annoying thing and tag everyone who would like to do this tag. I want to hear everyone do it because, yeah, I want to know what are the books that made you a reader. So that's all for today. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye.